How many kids did you guys want to have?
We wanted to have 4. Yeah. And I was praying to God that I was pregnant when he got murdered.
She's saying that the kids aren't even Charlie's. So basically, Erika Kirk was left with no will money, no merch sale money, nothing. After Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he put that his children are going to get all the money.
After months of nonstop online chatter about who the biological father of Erika's children really is, everything just took a sharp turn. A judge has now issued a ruling that reportedly changed her entire situation almost overnight. According to multiple reports, a court-ordered DNA test confirmed that Erika's former partner is the biological father of her children. That single result didn't just sit quietly. It set off a serious chain reaction that Erika may not have been ready for at all. Now, there are growing discussions that custody arrangements could be reconsidered, and there are also claims that she could be facing payments of up to $20,000 a month in child support, depending on how the case continues to unfold. What's really pushing this story everywhere right now is how the timeline lines up when people take a closer look. You've got the DNA test results, the ongoing custody situation, and statements Erika had made publicly over the years. When those pieces are placed next to each other, the judge's reported decision starts to look far less surprising and a lot more structured. At the same time, there's been a wave of unverified speculation online suggesting that Charlie Kirk may have believed he uncovered something about the situation before his passing and may have tried to confront Erika.
These 2 children do exist because I don't think Charlie would lie about having kids. Erika, on the other hand, as we've seen, lies like she breathes, like she has it down to an art form.
However, there's no confirmed evidence supporting those claims, and they remain purely speculative. So now, one question is dominating the conversation. What actually happened behind the scenes? What was really going on behind the scenes that led a court to make such a serious ruling involving Erika? And how long had key details been sitting just under the surface, waiting for people to finally connect the dots? Here's where things start to feel unusual. Erika herself was actually the first person to bring attention to the idea that something about her situation didn't fully add up, and she didn't do it quietly either. She shared it publicly. She went online and openly talked about intentionally keeping her pregnancy private, saying she was growing a new life. That exact phrase made a lot of people pause and look twice, because to many viewers, it didn't quite match the image she had built over time as someone centered on traditional, faith-based family values. The wording felt a bit staged to some, the tone felt carefully chosen, and once people picked up on that, curiosity started to grow fast. From there, people began searching for consistency. They looked for the kind of close, documented family life Erika had described for years, a strong, loving household she said she built together with Charlie. But what they noticed raised even more questions. Outside of a limited number of clips showing Charlie and the children together, there appears to be very little publicly available content showing him consistently present throughout their early lives. That absence stood out to many observers, especially when you consider that Charlie Kirk had built much of his public image around family values, fatherhood, and personal responsibility. Those themes were a big part of how people understood him. So when the public record didn't seem to fully reflect that same level of involvement, it led to even more discussion, more curiosity, and more people asking questions about how everything really unfolded behind the scenes. This is where people really started questioning things more seriously. Many pointed out that this wasn't someone known for staying quiet about major life moments. Charlie Kirk built a public image around sharing his work, his beliefs, and parts of his personal life. From his organization to his day-to-day messaging, a lot of his life was documented in some way. So the idea that he would be completely silent during such an important period, like the birth and early years of children connected to him, didn't sit right with some observers. When people compared that silence to how active active he was in other areas of his life, it raised more questions than answers. Then things became even more talked about when Erika shared ultrasound footage publicly. Viewers who paid close attention noticed a detail that quickly started circulating online. The name shown in the footage was Erika Franz Faye, and not clearly linked to Charlie's name. That immediately led to confusion for some people, because at the time that footage was said to be taken, she was reportedly already married. So naturally, people began asking why the name displayed didn't match what they expected. That detail alone sparked a wave of online discussion and interpretation, even though no official explanation has been widely confirmed. As more people revisited older posts and content, they began connecting that moment with something else that had already stood out. There has been very limited clear public imagery of the children over time. Most of what has appeared online shows them from angles, at a distance, or in ways where their faces are not fully visible. Some critics online have argued that this could be intentional, especially considering Erika's public image as a proud and devoted mother. Others, however, point out that many public figures choose to limit how much of their children's lives are shared for privacy and safety reasons. At this point, a lot of what's being discussed remains interpretation and speculation, but it continues to keep people watching closely and asking more questions. But here's where the timeline really starts to fall apart under closer attention. Erika has repeatedly stated in public that before her relationship with Charlie Kirk, she had never been in a serious relationship, never married, and never had children. That has been a consistent part of the stories she's shared over time. However, recent online discussions have pointed to older material that some viewers believe raises new questions. These claims are still being debated, but they've definitely caught people's attention.
I intentionally, when I was pregnant, hid. Not because I was embarrassed, not because I didn't want anyone. Yes, we did keep it very private, but because it was a moment very sacred. I was growing a human inside of me, my baby.
One clip in particular, said to be from a 2015 rally event, has been widely circulated again. In that footage, Erika is seen alongside a man identified online as Tyler Massey. What stood out to many viewers wasn't just their presence together, but the appearance of a young child near them in the video. Some people watching interpreted the body language and positioning as suggesting a close, family-like dynamic. Others caution that short clips can be misleading and don't always reflect the full context of a moment. Still, once that interpretation started spreading, it quickly became a major talking point online. Then, fast forward to December 2025, when Erika shared a photo that she described as her children. According to her, the image was meant to show she was with them on a specific date connected to a major event in her life. But viewers analyzing that photo began pointing out differences they believed were important. Some claimed the children in that image didn't appear to match earlier visuals people had associated with her family, and others questioned whether the ages lined up as expected.
But what I will say is, when I lived out here, I was here for 5 years. I never dated here because I saw vicariously through my roommate how terrible it was. Somehow getting drinks was the replacement of having coffee and breakfast.
At the same time, it's important to note that online comparisons like these can often be inaccurate or based on incomplete information. Still, these observations have added another layer to the ongoing conversation, keeping the situation under intense public scrutiny. Based on what's been publicly discussed, Erika's children with Charlie Kirk were believed to be around 1 and 3 years old at that time, but the children shown in that December photo appeared noticeably older to some viewers, with many estimating they looked closer to 8 years old or more. That's where confusion really started to grow. People began asking which children are actually being referred to here, and if the ones in that photo were older than expected, where does that fit into the overall timeline? This is also where online discussions took a more serious tone. Some reports and claims began circulating suggesting that certain images may have been staged for public presentation. These claims are not confirmed, but they've been widely debated across platforms. The suggestion being made by some critics is that images of children may have been used to support a specific public image centered around a traditional family lifestyle. If those claims were ever proven true, the implications would be significant. It would raise questions about whether the narrative presented publicly fully reflected reality. However, it's important to stress that these are still allegations and interpretations, not established facts. What keeps people focused on this situation is how the timeline is being interpreted. Critics online often point out that based on when Charlie and Erika were reportedly together, it would be difficult to align that timeline with children who appear significantly older. That observation has become a central part of the ongoing debate. Which leads to another name that keeps coming up in discussions, Tyler Massey, Erika's former partner. Some online speculation has suggested he could be connected to the situation being discussed, especially in light of unverified claims about DNA testing. However, no official confirmation has been publicly established regarding those claims. Tyler Massey, known as a professional athlete, has also been mentioned in older content shared by Erika herself. In resurfaced clips, she spoke about him in a way that suggested their relationship may have been meaningful at the time, going beyond something casual. Still, much of what is circulating remains unconfirmed, and the full picture has not been officially clarified, but that hasn't stopped people from continuing to question how all these pieces are supposed to fit together. In one resurfaced clip, she referred to him as her amazing and incredible boyfriend, and even called him her best friend. The tone, the energy, the way she spoke, it all came across as deeply genuine and emotionally strong. And it didn't stop there. Photos of Erika and Tyler, taken not long before she was reportedly linked to Charlie, began circulating online again. Those images spread quickly, and people immediately started forming opinions. To many viewers, the photos didn't look like a relationship fading out. Instead, they seemed to show two people who were very close, possibly building towards something long-term. The body language, the setting, the overall vibe, it all suggested a serious connection. Because of that, some people online began raising a possibility, not as a proven fact, but as a question. If their relationship was that strong, could there have been more to their story before things changed? It's a line of thinking that has fueled a lot of the ongoing discussion. So, when talk started spreading that a court had reportedly ordered DNA testing involving the children, reactions online were immediate and intense. Many pointed toward Tyler Massey as a possible connection, especially with older content and timelines being brought back into focus. Later claims suggesting what the results might have shown only added more energy to a conversation that had already been building for a while. Then attention shifted again, this time to what happened after Charlie's passing, because Erika's actions during that period have also been widely discussed. Some people expected to see a certain type of public response, especially given how she had presented her relationship. However, reports and public appearances from that time show that she was traveling and active shortly after. Of course, it's also important to recognize that people respond to loss in very different ways, and public appearances don't always reflect private emotions. Still, these moments have become another piece of the larger conversation that continues to unfold. Flying between states, moving from place to place, showing up with cameras rolling and preparing for public appearances, it all created a very specific image. To some observers, it didn't look like someone stepping away to process loss privately. It looked like someone staying active in the public eye during an intensely personal moment. Critics online have pointed this out directly. They've argued that if someone is a parent whose children have just experienced a major loss, the natural instinct would usually be to stay close, to support them, and to help them understand what's happening in a safe and private space. That expectation has been repeated across a lot of discussions. Instead, what people say they observed was movement, visibility, and continued public engagement. That contrast is what led some individuals online to start asking difficult questions. One interpretation that has been shared is the idea that the children may have had another support system present during that time. However, it's important to stress that this is speculation and not something that has been officially confirmed. People process situations differently, and public behavior doesn't always reflect private reality. Then things escalated even more once discussions about DNA testing and custody proceedings began spreading online. The reaction was immediate and intense because for many viewers, it seemed like long-standing narratives were suddenly being questioned. The image that had been presented over time, a devoted partner, a traditional family structure, a very specific personal history, started being re-examined piece by piece. People began revisiting interviews, older posts, and public appearances, trying to figure out what aligned and what didn't. Online reactions captured just how divided opinions had become. One comment read, "Where are the kids? Probably being taken care of by their biological father." Another person added, "I've wondered to what extent this marriage was ultimately a financial arrangement from which both Charlie and Erika benefited." These kinds of statements reflect the tone of the online conversation, but they remain personal opinions, not verified facts. At this stage, the situation continues to be shaped by a mix of public records, interpretations, and ongoing speculation, with many still trying to separate what is confirmed from what is simply being assumed. And according to the way this story is being discussed online, it doesn't just stop with Erika. It goes deeper and pulls in even more questions. That second comment especially kept spreading, and once it did, it introduced something people haven't been able to ignore since. If the situation wasn't exactly as it had been presented publicly, then did Charlie Kirk ever become aware of that before his death? That question alone has kept the conversation going non-stop.
Story time. So we're here at Bill's Burgers in New York City, and right near this very table was the first time Dada met Mama.
When people started looking more closely at the reported timeline of Charlie and Erika's relationship in the days leading up to his passing, some noticed what they believed were changes. The picture didn't fully match the idea of a completely stable and harmonious relationship that had been shown publicly. Erika herself shared a detail that has since become a major talking point. She stated that Charlie did not sleep in their shared bedroom the night before he died. Instead, he reportedly slept in the children's room, while Erika stayed in the main bedroom with one of the kids. Her explanation was that he wanted a good night's rest before an important speaking engagement the next day. But that reasoning quickly became a topic of debate online. Some people accepted the explanation at face value. Others questioned it, saying it didn't fully line up with what they would expect in that situation. After all, being in his own room might seem like the most comfortable option to many. Because of that, some interpretations began to circulate, suggesting there may have been tension or distance between them during that time. However, it's important to be clear there is no confirmed evidence publicly proving the nature of their private relationship in those final days. Still, this detail has added another layer to the ongoing discussion, with people continuing to analyze every part of the timeline, trying to understand what was really happening behind closed doors. And what Erika described about the next morning only added more intensity to the online conversation. According to her own account, the interaction between her and Charlie Kirk that morning was extremely brief. She explained that he came into the bedroom, gathered his wedding ring and a necklace, and then left. That was it. No long conversation, no emotional exchange, nothing that stood out as a meaningful goodbye. For many people watching from the outside, that detail felt surprising, especially considering the strong public image they had built around marriage, faith, and family connection. Some expected a very different kind of moment between them, something warmer, something more personal. Because of that, online discussions quickly picked up speed. People started lining up the details: him sleeping in a separate room, the short and quiet interaction the next morning, and the lack of visible affection in that final moment. To some, it didn't look like a routine morning at all. Instead, certain commentators interpreted it as a sign that something may have already shifted between them. Not confirmed, but enough to raise eyebrows. Others pushed back, pointing out that private relationships can look very different behind closed doors, and brief interactions don't always tell the full story. There has also been speculation from some critics suggesting there could have been a disagreement or serious conversation prior to that morning. However, there is no verified evidence publicly confirming what may or may not have happened the night before. At this point, what remains are Erika's statements and a wide range of interpretations built around them, with people continuing to analyze every detail, trying to understand what that final morning really meant.
Now, with the custody ruling added on top of everything else, people online are starting to feel like they're only seeing the surface of a much deeper story. You've got the reported DNA confirmation, the $20,000 monthly child support discussions, the custody implications, and then the timeline of Charlie Kirk's final days layered on top of that. Add in the behavior people say they noticed after his passing, the lack of clear public documentation involving the children, the resurfaced photos with Tyler Massey, and even that rally footage. And suddenly, it's a lot to take in all at once. Each piece on its own might not seem overwhelming, but when people start putting everything together, it creates a bigger picture that has led to some serious questions being asked online. How much did Charlie actually know in those final weeks? Had he started questioning things earlier than people realized? And if that final night really marked a turning point in their relationship, what does that mean for everything that came after? At the same time, it's important to remember that many of these ideas are based on interpretation and ongoing discussion, not confirmed conclusions. Still, for many following this story closely, the custody ruling didn't just introduce legal complications. It opened up an entirely new wave of questions that people are still trying to make sense of today. So what do you think is really going on here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And make sure you check out the next video because this story might not be over yet.